There?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me first introduce myself. My name is Chen. I'm from China. I'm first year at Berkeley.
Yes?
I'm taking Econ 1 currently.
Okay.
So I'm kind of feeling very great in the Econ 1. So let's do some, just begin the interview.
Okay.
The first topic is I want to discuss with you is about teaching.
Okay.
Then you have teaching Econ 1 for a couple of years,
Yep.
and also some other division classes in the Econ
Yes.
department. So what do you feel the difference between a class with 800 people and also a class with 30 people or students?
So,
There's a huge
yeah,
difference.
there's a huge difference. So there's two things that distinguish the classes. One is the size,
Right.
and the other is the level of the students. So Econ 1 is 720, and the seminar I'll teach in the spring is 20. And so that difference in the number of students means I'm going to teach those classes very differently.
Right.
It's not possible for me to check in with each student in a class of 720 to make sure that they're keeping up. I use the clickers to give a sense, but there's times when I'm okay with 70% getting something right, explaining it and going on, and I don't re-ask the question until I can get 95% getting it right.
Right.
If I had 20 people in the class, I might take more time to go back and make sure that the 4 people who got it wrong understood what it was that they did wrong before I went on.
Yes. Like I remember that you did what does capital mean in Econ 1?
That's right.
Yeah.
So that question I kept doing every day until
Because
I got to the point where
really
we got
important.
100%. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's sometimes when I'll ask a question and I get a lot of wrong answers, and I'll re-explain the material, and then I'll ask the question again. But generally, so like a lot of the questions I've been asking, I get 70% get the right answer, and then I just go, I say that's okay, and then I go on.
Okay.
So I do a little bit of explanation as to what's the right answer, but I don't re-ask the question to see if the 30% who got it wrong the first time get it right the second time. With a smaller class, I would take the time to do that. With a smaller class, it would be an integrated piece, so there wouldn't be the 720 for 2 hours with me and the 30 for 2 hours with the GSI. It would be 4 hours a week with me, and so the exercises that you do would be more integrated right into the flow. And so, we'd do some material, then we would do the exercise, then we'd wrap it up, then we'd do the next piece of material, then we'd do the exercise. So the flow would be very different. So that's how I would take the same material and teach it with 30 instead of 720. But the class I'm teaching in the spring, which is just 20 students, is an upper division seminar class.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different class because of the content of the material. And that's going to be a class where the students, there'll be 2 or 3 economic journal articles that are assigned for each week, and everybody needs to read the article before they come to class. And then what we'll do in class is I'll orchestrate a discussion. And so I'll have a couple of prompt questions to sort of get things rolling. But I very much rely on the students to sort of take the conversation and go forward with it.
All right.
So my preparation is very different, and there's a lot less talking by me. I think of it as that in Econ 1, I'm sort of the lead dancer, and everybody
Right.
needs to follow what I'm doing. And in the seminar course, I'm the choreographer.
Okay.
Sort of.
Just make students
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Where you all are going to do the dancing. I'm going to get the dance started. But it's going to be what they call modern dance, right? Where I don't choreograph every step. So it's very different in that regard.
Just come up with really interesting assumption. So what if you have an opportunity to teach Econ 1 in a liberal arts college?
In a liberal arts college?
Yeah.
So I did that 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and so that's what I'm describing about. So there you go, you just weave the exercises right into the class.
Okay.
So you do 15 minutes of presentation, and then 20 minutes of exercise, and then 15 minutes of presentation, and 20 minutes of exercise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what do you think of the optimal interaction between students and lecturer or professor?
What's the optimal? I don't know if there's one optimum. I think that I think different types of schools deliver a different product.
Marginal cost
And-
equals marginal value.
Yeah, and that in the liberal arts setting, for the liberal arts college, it's a very different education that's being delivered. And so there's a lot more opportunity for interaction. There's certainly interaction in the classroom every day in a liberal arts setting. Fewer people came to my office hours. I had very little office hours traffic, but maybe that's because they had lots of opportunity in class to ask questions. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Just like, what do you think of the best interaction in Econ 1? Like, because in Econ 1 you are just
Yeah.
the key factor.
Yeah.
The key factor.
I tell you, the one thing that I regret is that they shortened the semester by 3 full days a couple of years ago. So 3 full classes. So now we have 26, and this semester, because they put the final exam so late, I have 26 days, but 3 of those are exams, so I have 23 days of teaching. And there used to be 27 days of teaching, so that's 15% more. That made a huge difference. So I was able, with 23 versus 27 days of teaching, right, that is like 15%. With 15% more time, I can take a lot more questions. I like it better when I can start class by saying, do y'all have any questions before we get started? And I don't do that anymore. So when I had 3 more days, I did. So I used to always start class by saying, do y'all have any questions before we get started? And there'd be 1 or 2 questions that would start the day. And now I start with clicker questions. So I start with questions for you. And that's because of the shortening of the semester. So that's the piece I regret. Because I've kicked out material and kicked out material and kicked out material, and I'm to the point where I don't know what's left for me to eliminate from the class. I have to close that door because of the construction. So I don't know what's left that I could possibly eliminate, and I certainly hope they don't, cut any more days out of the semester, because I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, because that Econ 1 just only have 2 lectures every week, but really short time.
It's a very short time.
Yeah,
That's
like
right.
Econ 2 has 3 hours.
That's right, yeah, and that was the difference, so that they created Econ 2, so it's still 4 contact hours, but it's, Econ 2 is 3 with the professor and 1 with the GSIs versus 2 and 2.
It's the same, total.
It's the same total, so it's 4 hours total. And so if I was doing Econ 2, that would really change section, right? So we wouldn't be able to do presentations.
But you have more time to answer questions.
I'd have more time to answer questions in class, but that class usually has 250 to 300 students. I'm taking 1 or 2 people's questions. That's a very small percentage of the class. It's not clear that the questions are shared by lots and lots of people. And I think that, for my part, losing the opportunity to discuss the reader questions, I think that would be a big loss, because I think the reader helps you see how this stuff applies to the real world.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, your articles posted on Twitter. Yeah, it's really meaningful for us to read and answer questions.
Yeah.
And last question in the topic of teaching, what do you think of the people from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds? Like, there's a lot of international students who take Econ 1, so what do you think of the difference between them and also?
So that's a relatively new phenomenon. The university changed their marketing 3 or 4 years ago, and really increased the number of international students that they were admitting, and a disproportionate number of the international students are taking Econ 1. So the mix of students in Econ 1 has changed a lot in less than 5 years. So I have very mixed feelings about having the webcasts on the web, but I think it's important for the international students to be able to hear the material and see the material a second time. So for anybody for whom English is not their first language, I think it's important to be able to listen to it all again. And so I do that. I don't like the webcast, because I feel like there are some students who will